Like alchemists who knew the secrets of transmuting base elements into precious metals, emotional transformation is a process. Emotions become the raw material that changes pain into emotional and spiritual power.
Throughout history, men and women discovered the transforming power of suffering when it was fused with their openness to the sacred. Like alchemy, they saw fear transmuted into courage. Mourning became dancing, and brokenness fell away in the healing acceptance of a new day.
For this emotional alchemy to take place, we need to accept that all the emotional currents inside us are the raw materials for our unique journey. None of them, no matter how dark, frightening, or volatile, should be discarded.
You really don't need to blame anybody for this. I started blaming out the electricians and everybody started all this kind of stuff, and there's nobody to blame, I don't think, anymore. I used to blame God. I used to blame my mom for not being able to get out. But there's nobody to blame. You really have to accept the fact that they were supposed to go at that time.
C.S. Lewis, great man and one of my heroes, probably my greatest hero. He always spoke about the idea of the dentist. The dentist hurts you, but it's to make you better. And the sculptor, sculpting away, God the sculptor, to make you perfect, improve you, refine you, define you. I think if you don't grow through pain, it's absolutely pointless. Viktor Frankl, logotherapy, a man in a death camp who loses his family and everything. There is meaning even in suffering. There is meaning in suffering. I think it's the fundamental of Christianity. So you do grow through it. I think you grow a layer of emotion, perhaps, and understanding and empathy. So yes, it's important in that way. But if someone said, look, I can give you this without the pain, I'd say give it.
Remember, we cannot manage what we avoid or do not fully own. This process takes courage. It also takes faith. Courage and faith to travel to the center of your pain and to eventually move through it to find transformation and solidarity.
But there is that common thread of shared loss that can make grieving together with other people more manageable.
Forcing myself to express my grief to others, forcing myself to take time to reflect upon the relationship I had with that person, forcing myself to maybe bring other family members together to say this is going to produce something positive in us, not something negative.
Loss is about pain. Remind yourself that it's supposed to hurt. Learn to lean to and into your pain, not shy away from it. In fact, I encourage you to take 20 minutes every day to just remember and express the feelings surrounding your loss.
An important task in the grief process is to transport the pain, thoughts, and memories from the inside to the outside over and over again. Each time we express our sorrow, emotions wash over our souls like waves that cleanse our grief wound and release energy.
Because it's only through mourning that we're able to invest in life and that it won't destroy us.
Death can slam you fast and hard with
in just about every situation I have encountered, I see the opportunities to talk about one's relationship with the loved one who has passed on as being a rare key part of the process of externalizing the grief emotions. that for some people just engaging in the rituals might be sufficient for them. That might be speaking as loud as using the verbal expressions.
Making sound expends energy and helps dissipate pent-up emotions. Over the course of thousands of years, every culture and religion have confirmed that prayers, meditation, chants, groans, speaking in other tongues, and even screaming into a pillow significantly releases emotional pain. Singing is a gentle, rhythmic way to allow your emotions to flow.
I tried to write a lot, which I know now is a good thing, and that helped a bit. But it got to the point where it was like I needed a bit more than that, obviously.
So, of course, I began to mourn Rochelle in the context of who I was and what I knew. But very quickly, I began to understand that there was a great need for me to express what had happened to me on the outside of myself. I quickly knew that this grief was way bigger than myself, and so that I needed to reach out for support.
If you need to cry, you cry. If you need just to be quiet, you be quiet. You need to scream, then scream if you have to. There are different ways. I do believe there has to be a release, though. Excuse me. There has to be a time when you can just let it out. And to keep it within can't be positive.
Tears are also an effective safety valve that releases the inner pressure of pain. Crying generates endorphins within the brain that soften emotional pain.
The key is staying the course until the full cleansing of the grief wound and transformation process is complete.
But what I taught in Islamic term, that I need to control myself and I see God's blessing even in that situation. Promise to me that I will replace this thing by a better thing in this life, and next life will be your ultimate reward.
And I guess the biggest thing that I've kind of come away with is when you're running and you hit the wall and it feels like you just can't go any further, and it's very painful. But if you push through it, there's almost an elation that comes with it. You feel, wow, I could do this forever now. And I found the grieving process was similar, as far as at times you just felt like, wow, the intensity was just so painful, and thinking, I don't know if I can get through this. And after 2.5 years, and I'm not really sure where it happened that I broke through that wall, but now I can remember the good things and the happy things and the wonderful things that made her.
Finishing this marathon of grieving is about endurance, fortitude, and stamina to tolerate the pain and suffering without collapsing. This is not a journey for the faint of heart.
To run a marathon or to do an Ironman, you have to put in months and months and months of training. And that when you run that first mile, you have trouble, but my experience tells me that by the time I work up to running 7 miles, 10 miles, 20 miles, I'm going to be able to do it. And when I think about getting through this grief process, that's what I think about, is that 1 step today, 2 steps tomorrow, 3 steps next week, and at some point I'm going to get where I want to be, which is some place where it's not going to hurt so much.
The process of healing operates in direct contrast to the way our culture tells us to take charge, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and get on with your life. But in fact, healing takes a different path. It comes through surrender, that paradoxical response to vulnerability. While our normal reaction is to gain control, the genius and power of alchemy is doing just the opposite.
We're bombarded by misconceptions in our grief. So it's very difficult for us to understand what healthy grief is. We get very little understanding, very little education. People still are awkward to talk about it. It's still somewhat taboo in our society to talk about death.
Talking about coming to the place of surrender in the face of death. I would say that it is certainly a process, and it's not something you come to once. There seem to be layers. They have to keep peeling and saying, okay, Lord, I accept that. I mean, the first one is that the person has died. That's a kind of surrender.
There's a part of us, psychologists call the ego, that demands to know why things happened. It's the part of us that wants to dictate how life should be and endeavors to control our future. Our ego can keep us tangled up in endless preoccupations. The truth is, a big part of life happens outside our control. Surrender allows us to stop trying to control what cannot be controlled. It's that state of allowing the world to be what it is. Let God be God, as you may or may not understand God to be, and allow yourself to be you. Fully human, fully wonderful, capable, yet not God.
You know, you're always asking why. You're always wanting to know why, and I'll continue to want to know why, and I'll continue to want to know why my son was, how he honestly got hit by a train, and how my brother was, why Mike would have done this to him, why this person would have killed my brother. I always ask myself, why? It's exhausting. It's exhausting to search for these answers. So for me, and what's helped me in that whole endeavor is to just, I can't change that. I have to accept it.
I think we have to be willing for God to help us. That's maybe a surrender as well. You know, God, I can't understand the why. I can't understand how I can ever come to some measure of surrender, but I'm willing to, and I'm asking you to help me.
The journey of moving towards our pain and fear is unsettling. It's imperative to know how to work with your emotional energy system in order to nurture yourself back to a calm state. You can start by recognizing emotional energy surges, then intentionally inserting emotional fuses within the emotional electrical system that will protect you and calm you.
One thing I have right now, because this is all quite recent, I have my husband's pictures, and I put them on the fridge, and I talk to them. I talk to him, and in the morning when I get up, I give him a kiss on the picture, or at night when I go to bed. And if I'm trying to calm myself, or if I really feel a real moment of need, I have a couple of CDs that I find very calming, and I listen to them, and I talk to him. I still talk to him. I don't ask him questions or ask advice, but I talk to him.
In this journey, we've talked about learning to release energy. It's just as important to learn to calm yourself. This can happen in a variety of ways, and it will be very unique to you personally. Learn to sit quietly, listening to music. Learn to pray or go for a slow walk in the woods. Sometimes it's calming just to phone someone and tell them you just need to talk. The ability to soothe yourself actually builds confidence to remain authentic with connecting with others.
I notice with children that they are good because they do their childrenly things. They don't stop being hungry or liking candy or whatever. They carry on, and somehow that helps, that the normalcy of life carries on. And I think that's all part of community as well. So if they're elderly, they need kids around. They need the reality that life does continue.
In addition to managing your emotions, it's important to manage the flow of your responsibilities as well. Routines and structured days are very helpful in the effort to balance difficult days. Don't stop going to work or school. Don't stop cleaning the house. Keep having the friends over. Plan to keep moving. When traveling the most difficult times of life, a wise person does not travel alone. The journey of grief can be long, but none so long as when you travel alone.
Knowing what I know now, yeah, I would do things a little differently in terms of seeking help sooner than I did. Maybe not look to the wrong things to try to make it go away.
Grief pushes us to find a fresh way to look at the importance of life. Life's important questions press us for new answers. Why am I here? Who am I? What is my work? How will I live without them? How will I live with the days I've been given?
As a human nature, my response maybe go a little bit, abrupt, and I suffer and I feel the pain of this thing. But what I taught in Islamic term, that I need to control myself and I seek God's blessing even in that situation.
Transcendence is about rising above our feelings and situations. We set our sights upon something higher than ourselves. The purpose of converting the energy from your dark and painful emotions is to fuel purpose and meaning. Without a sense of meaning, we can fall into despair. Without meaning, we become the walking dead. This journey is a unique juncture to use our weakness to perfect strength. We need to invent calling and lay hold of our personal destiny.
In my own personal life, one of the ways I have been able to move on was really to go back to my Christian faith.
My real support is not material side. Material side is available for me just to means for some kind of, goal. But the real support is coming from God's invisible help.
Because we understand that when we come to the end of this life, we come face to face with the question, is this all there is?
The transformation process is complete when we move from decision to action to make a difference in the life that remains. When we find and connect to a purpose or action greater than ourselves, we rise above the quagmire of grief. Many set their focus on eternal issues and reach for spiritual comfort and direction from God. Others determine to make a difference here in this world. The mother who lost a child to a drunk driver took the hurt and anguish and channeled it to create MAD, as we all understand it, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers.
I needed to search for meaning. I needed to ask all those questions. Why Rochelle? Why us? What did all this mean that a young little girl would die? Not particularly the reason or purpose, but was there any meaning that could come out of such a terrible tragedy?
But Judaism says very clearly that every human being has a task or a series of tasks to fulfill during their lifetime in this world. That's not just Jews, that's every human being. It also suggests that that people seek out community. They seek out involvement in activities that will keep them busy. Not for the purpose of keeping busy, but for the purpose of making a contribution to the community, to the society in which we live, that is positive and productive.
I personally endeavored to transcend our pain through giving out of my own loss. On Gwen's birthday, I had a great need to remember her, so I arranged for my therapist's wife to purchase a dress in Gwen's honor, since I had no one to buy for. As a family, we traveled to Zimbabwe to dedicate 2 small rondables or homes in an orphanage, since children was so important to Gwen. Transcendence is about reaching, pushing, and rising above the pain to create something that was not there before. Out of nothingness comes a new creation.
It's almost a pragmatic process designed to facilitate the reintegration of the mourner into a normal daily schedule. Reintegrate them into life, because death has this ability to affect paralysis. Sometimes people aren't ready to get up from sitting Shiva, but Jewish law demands it. It says, this is the time to get up. And someone who's grieving, someone who's mourning, often needs that direction. They need that guidance.
Faith is a major coping mechanism in life. It's been clearly shown scientifically that people with religious faith cope much better with death and grief and loss than those who have no faith at all. And in fact, they even have healthier health outcomes, less heart attacks, less cancer, and faster recovery from physical illness. And ultimately, the best coping is knowing our relationship with God and the meaning of losses and death in our lives. And if we have faith, then we understand that life doesn't stop with death, that we're going to meet our loved ones again, and that there's ultimate meaning both in living and dying.
Allowing your wounded heart to heal takes courage. Move towards your grief wound daily. Surrender and let go and let the sorrow flow. But pace yourself. Then soothe yourself back to emotional stability. Learn to tolerate the pain. Take only one step, one day at a time. Eventually, this experience will also present you the opportunity to refocus your emotional pain from the past and reinvest it. This is transcendence. It's about offering the gifts of our life back to impacting the world and the future. Many faiths have described this life as a mere shadow of what is to come. In this sense, what you've thought of as the end is really just the beginning.